off the lives on some other channels. So we should be coming live now on Facebook, on Twitter, via Periscope, on YouTube. We're live on TikTok, and we are live on Instagram. So I think we have everything sorted from a live perspective. If you are watching this on the replay, if you are on one of the channels that you can watch the replay on, please do give me a hashtag replay in the comments. Let me know that you are here. Let me know that you have tuned in. I would love to come back and say hello to you at a later date. For those of you that are hopping on live now, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Today's session, I am going to be covering more updates on coronavirus UK business. Please do let me know any questions you have in the comments. I would like to know any questions that you have on this topic, coronavirus and UK business, in the comments, and I will answer those for you. If you are joining live, please give me a hello. Please let me know that you are on live. And if you have caught me before on previous sessions and you know that I'll be sharing a lot of value, please do share this out to your networks so that people can come on and see this as well. I can see we've got some people hopping on. We've got a few watching now on Facebook. We've got a few watching on TikTok. And we've got a few watching on Instagram so far. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate those that are saying hello. Hey, Ian. Thank you so much for joining me. Hi, Michael. Hi, Raphael. Hi, Tony. We've got lots of people. Hi, Patrick. Hello. Thank you so much for hopping on and joining me. Whichever platform you are on, I can see your comments on all platforms. So please do ask me any questions and please do say hello. Today's session, coronavirus and UK business updates. What I am going to be trying to do from now on is actually go live every day, Monday to Friday. Hello. Sometimes I have people coming through as Facebook user, which is a bit annoying. So the current one has just come through as Facebook user. So whoever that is, hello, I will see afterwards. I'll be able to check the comments on that. I think it's people in the Facebook group seem to be coming through as Facebook user, annoyingly. I will be attempting to be live every single weekday now, Monday to Friday. It will be typically 11 a.m., but some days I already have stuff in the diary for next week, so it will vary a little bit, but I am going to be going live daily with daily updates. Ali Young says she's just on TikTok. Well, I'm live on TikTok as well. My TikTok and Instagram cameras are right next to each other, so you can see me on both. But thank you so much for tuning in on back over here on Instagram. Either, it's completely fine. So I want to give you some updates. For those of you, hey, thank you so much for joining me, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Annette Ferguson. I'm CEO of Annette & Co, UK-based accounting firm. I'm a chartered accountant and a certified profit first professional. Fundamentally, we help business owners take home more money from their business. At the moment, of course, a lot of our things are focused on the current situation with businesses, coronavirus, what support is available, what help is available, and also helping people keep their businesses alive and afloat at this point in time when things might be incredibly challenging. Perhaps you've had revenue drop, perhaps you've had revenue drop to nil. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the statistics on that during this session as well, because they're quite interesting. So, well, I find them interesting. I hope you will too. So I want to share some updates with you today. I have a few notes on those because everything is changing all the time. And so I didn't want to miss any points. So I have written a few notes on those. The first one I want to cover is the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. I mentioned it yesterday. I mentioned that very few people have been paid out on this scheme as yet. It has been pretty difficult, in all honesty, for people to get payouts. One of the things that we're hearing is one big reason is that many of the banks have their loan processing departments in India. India is, of course, on strict lockdown as well. And so that is causing some severe issues in terms of getting loans agreed and paid out. We've heard that 70% of the loans so far that have been approved by RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, which is, of course, a government-backed bank. So it's quite interesting that they are the ones that have paid the vast majority of loans out. For many businesses, the loan scheme, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, or CBILS, as some people are terming it, which I honestly think sounds like the name of a hamster, but that is what some people are calling it. That is primarily what many businesses can rely on as well. Hey, Frank, thank you for joining me on Periscope there. I appreciate that. So the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme is what many businesses have as fundamentally their primary way of accessing any support during this time, particularly if you're a small limited company. There are other things which may not be that applicable to you and you might not be able to access. So with that loan scheme, it has been very difficult for people to be approved. We know that, and some banks are saying 8 weeks still before anything comes out of that. So that's being very problematic. Now, what we've heard is going to be announced later today is that this loan scheme is going to be extended for fast-growing startups. So if that is your business, then it might be applicable. This is primarily businesses that have venture capital funding already. So they already are receiving venture capital funding. They're venture capital-backed businesses. The loan scheme is likely to be extended to them. And this might be, though, by the way of a slightly different system. So convertible loans that are being converted into equity potentially as well. So a few changes to the loan scheme, but nothing that sounds like it's going to actually deliver the loans faster to UK business. Thank you, everyone that's joining me. I can see lots of people hopping on the various platforms. So I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much for doing that. Please do give me a hello in the comments. If you are joining, I would love to know that you are here. So please do give me a hello. Sarah's saying venture-backed money going to money. Yeah, and that's what it feels like, Sarah. It feels like, it feels like you wouldn't necessarily need to give loans to venture-backed businesses anyway, because they've got their investors as an option there. So I agree, Sarah, it doesn't sound very fair and it doesn't sound very right, but that does seem to be what they are saying is coming out. Hey, Jason, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you tuning in. Who else have we got? Rosario on Twitter, on TikTok as well. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for saying hello. I really do appreciate it. So with the loan scheme, as I say, it looks like, hello, hey, thank you so much. It does look like it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks till anybody really gets any meaningful payout, which is going to be a real problem for many people, because this is a primary means of accessing funds for many small businesses who aren't particularly entitled to much more. Exactly, Mark. Nothing for small limited company directors still. That is exactly the position we are still in, unfortunately. Now, there have been calls to extend this loan scheme so that instead of it being backed by government 80%, it's backed 100% by government. That has been what people have suggested. And there are pros and cons to this. Of course, it would probably mean that the loans get paid out faster, which it would be a great thing. The negative thing behind it would be that they potentially then get paid out to businesses that were never viable in the first place. They were never viable before this, and therefore, excuse me, extending it to those types of businesses will massively increase the risk in default and massively increase the money that has to be paid out by government. So there's a double-edged sword there, because of course the argument then is, yes, but we need to save as many businesses as possible versus giving money to businesses that were never viable in the first place from a financial perspective. So it's a very tricky one. What have we got here? Companies giving equity injections by EU member states as a result of coronavirus will not be allowed to pay out dividends, buy back shares, or provide bonuses or similar remunerations, according to official documents seen in the Financial Times. I had been on the Financial Times this morning, but I haven't read that document, so I can't comment on that, but I will have a look at that. I can only see that it says Facebook user, which is really annoying. I will read that though, and I will comment on that. Perhaps I will come on live later and comment on that, or on my live on Monday. So I will read that article. Would still be applied to the UK, as we're still kind of in the EU. That's really interesting. Who I will look later to see who it is that raised that point, and I will come back and address that. So thank you so much for raising that. There are certain rules around financial aid and what can be done with money from financial aid. So perhaps that is what the Financial Times article is speaking about. As I say, I will read and digest that though and come back to you guys on that as well. So what else we are hearing is that 2/3 of small builders are facing going bust by June. That's an incredibly high percentage in the construction industry. There's been some vast surveys done in that industry, and 2/3 are facing going bust by June. Only 4% have successfully applied for loans. That's not dissimilar, in all honesty, to the percentages that we're seeing industry-wide, for other industries as well, I should say. It's not dissimilar. That is the kind of percentages we're looking at, and it seems like it's similar in the construction industry as well. 86% are waiting to hear back from their banks. Again, we're seeing this mirrored across all industries, so not just construction industry. And with that survey for the construction industry, 1 in 20 was able to qualify for rates relief, whereas 19 out of 20 were not. Again, mirrored across all industries, really. If we look at companies as a whole, small companies as a whole, many do not qualify for the rates grants and rates relief because they don't have premises. People working from home, people having online businesses, being much more location independent, all those kinds of things, and do not have premises to get this loan on. So what we're seeing from the data from that construction industry survey is pretty much being mirrored everywhere as well. We are also seeing Paul Scully, the small business minister. Let me just check what Jonathan is saying there. If you really need a loan to survive, e.g. the small builders, wouldn't it be best to quit, dissolve and restart rather than being saddled with extra debt? Potentially, Jonathan, but there are rules around insolvency. It would depend. It really would depend on the business, and it would depend on what they've already got. They could already have debt that's personally backed. We just don't, it would depend very much on a business by business basis as to whether it would be best to shut down the business, dissolve and start again after this. Completely depends. If you're in the middle of a project with a contract, you can't do that kind of thing either. So it would really depend. We're also seeing, let me see if I've got any other comments that we need to answer as well at the moment. Nothing coming through there. Let's just have a look on TikTok, on Instagram. My TikTok and Instagram comments are not all in the one place like all the other platforms that are on my screen, but they are actually on. My setup is crazy. I have to do a video about this setup, to be honest. I have a webcam where I'm streaming through different platforms, and then I've got 2 phones on the go as well. So it looks a little bit crazy. Maybe I'll do something about my setup as well for people. So we had Paul Scully come out, the small business minister, and he is saying that he wants to get money ASAP to those, and in his words, he says, who are falling through the cracks. So Mark, as you mentioned, the small limited company is exactly that. The director of the small limited companies are falling through the cracks just now. They are not being financially supported in the same way that employees are, or self-employed people are. You can have your thoughts as you wish on the method that small limited companies pay themselves. However, it is important to know that if you see a director who has a small business, who is running a small limited company, they are already paying corporation tax. They are already paying tax on dividends. That was changed quite substantially over the last few years, and they are taking home a salary. So if you add in the corporation tax element, and if it's a solo director, essentially that is being paid by them. Yes, a limited company director are 2 separate legal entities, but to all intents and purposes, they are the same thing in their own minds. And when it comes to the money that's available for them and their families, if you look at it from that perspective, then the small limited company director does actually pay overall more tax than the person who is on payroll or self-employed, all in. So it's often, not always, but often they can. So, please don't discard this group of people as being those who are tax cheats or anything like that, because that is not the case. The small limited company that is profitable is paying corporation tax. is paying tax on dividends. So they are really not paying very differently in way of tax than a sole trader is, or than an employee. There's really very little difference. So it seems incredibly unfair to that group of people at the moment, who are unable to claim in the same way that others are. Sarah is saying those without premises that are limited are left out. Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. The only option really is the loan system for those businesses. So Paul Scully, as I said, says that he wants to make sure that money gets to people who are falling through the cracks. He has, though, said that he first needs to convince the Chancellor of that, who has said that those affected should use the benefits system rather than handouts. So that seems quite a harsh line that we're hearing there. And a Treasury official has also been quoted as saying there are no plans to change these arrangements. Mark is saying, yeah, absolutely, Mark, that the small limited companies are also tax collectors. So in terms of VAT and in terms of PAYE, we are acting as tax collectors. And he's wondering whether he can invoice HMRC for those services. They may not accept your invoice, Mark, but it's an absolutely fair point that we do help gather tax for HMRC as well. And this treatment doesn't seem particularly fair. I completely agree. Paul Scully seems on a little bit of a mission to try and change that. But like I say, the information that is coming out the other end, the Treasury official saying there are no plans to change the arrangements, and the Chancellor saying, well, you have the option of the benefits system. It feels like they've kind of decided on that one. And we got a little bit of that impression when Rishi, the Chancellor, is speaking as well, when he is saying that he needs to right the ship with this. And, he was kind of indicating that, well, because directors have paid less in, they shouldn't get any support. That is basically what was being said as well. Evelyn's saying she's a big fan and can she have a shout out? Yeah, absolutely, Evelyn. It's Evelyn6850 on TikTok. Yeah, good to have you on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me. So that is what Paul Scully is saying. We had some data through from the Office of National Statistics, which says that 25% of businesses in the UK are temporarily closed at the moment. Of those that continue to trade, 38% said their turnover was substantially lower, 17% said it was slightly lower, and a third have said that they have been unaffected so far. We're also seeing a 40% reduction in staff levels in the short term from the data from the Office of National Statistics. I was actually surprised that 25% of businesses temporarily closed is not a higher number. From what I am seeing around, I know many people are unable to generate revenue at this time, so it would be interesting to see the cross section of industries that they've surveyed for that. We're also getting reports that it's expected that the world economy will face a double recession as a result of this. Now, I highly expect, as we come out of coronavirus, us to basically fall into a recession position. We're expecting the Q2 numbers to be a significant drop. We heard initially 14% drop in the economy. We're now hearing around about 25%. A recession is two quarters drop. So we would have to wait for the second quarter to get the data in whether we're officially in a recession, but I cannot see us being in anything else other than that, to be honest, because of the effect that this has had on businesses. And then, of course, what happens when we come out the other side. So I think that business owners not only need to be prepared for what's happening just now, but also understand that the likelihood is that we'll tumble into a recession after this as well. And what does that mean for your business? What does that mean for your way of thinking? So that's something to be really, really aware of as well. We've also heard that about half of UK employers plan to use the furlough scheme. That's what's being quoted. Now, the furlough scheme is the job retention scheme for when if you have employees who are unable to work just now as a result of the situation with coronavirus. So if you are furloughing staff, you have to write them a letter and they need to respond to that letter. The system for furlough, the system to claim the payments under furlough, which is 80% of the employee's wages, plus the employer's national insurance contribution, plus the employer's pension contribution. The system to do that, the portal will be open from Monday. Whether or not it will stay up and not crash, that of course remains to be seen, but it will open from Monday. Agents are allowed to submit on your behalf. So anyone who has somebody, their accountant doing payroll or a payroll bureau doing payroll, they will be able to submit on their behalf. I have heard, however, though, that a number of accountants are charging their clients extra to submit furlough claims. We do know that the furlough claims will take quite a while to submit for each entity with the information that has to be entered, and you can't transfer over from your payroll software by the sounds of things. It sounds like everything will need to be keyed in. I have heard the typical charge is £50 per furlough submission that needs to be done, basically, that people are charging. We are not, incidentally, charging any of our clients anything for their furlough submissions. So any clients that are watching, you can be rest assured that we are not charging clients for furlough submissions at all. But I know a number of accountants, a number of firms are, and the typical fee that I've heard, excuse me, I'm very croaky, excuse me. The typical fee that I have heard is around £50 for up to 5 employees, and then it was scaling up after that, just so you're aware. So if you have an accountant who is going to be submitting your furlough claim and you've not heard anything on the fees front, it might be worth double checking with them to see whether they are going to be charging you for that service as well. Yeah, somebody is saying, you're welcome. Somebody is saying, just wait for the lawsuits to start against companies that didn't protect their employees. Yeah, I think that there's going to be an interesting range of legal issues when we come out of this, because when you're choosing to put someone into furlough, are you adhering to the anti-discrimination laws that exist in employment law? That's going to be a big issue, and I suspect that as we come out of this, people will claim they were discriminated against and put on furlough, whereas other people were not, and they were kept at 100% wage, and the person who's been discriminated against was on 80% wage and furloughed. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out on that. It feels like we're playing a little bit fast and loose with a number of laws here, including employment law, certain health and safety laws. Absolutely. If you are a business that is, making people go into an office setting or a construction site setting or something like that, there is the potential for people to be saying that you have not looked after their health and safety, particularly if they contract coronavirus, particularly if they then end up in in ICU or worse. So I think that there's going to be a lot that's going on here that is potentially going to cause some issues after the fact. I completely agree on this. So half of UK employers plan to use the furlough scheme. It's important to note as well, companies are not actually obliged to furlough their staff. If your staff have no work to do, you don't actually have to furlough them. You don't actually have to put them into furlough. And we are hearing as well that some companies are just putting people on unpaid leave. They're not actually putting them into furlough. Now, this might be because of the massive administration time and cost if your accountant is charging, or if you're doing it in-house, the cost of someone's time to administer this. That might be the reason. If you have a lot of employees, this is going to be a huge administrative burden, and it's going to take a lot of time and potentially cost a lot of money to put them into furlough, money you don't get back, money you can't claim back because it's to do with the administration of it. So those companies that are choosing not to put people into furlough, they can legally do that. Now, there's an argument as to whether that is morally the thing that you'd want to be doing. PR perspective, your own morals and values. However, you don't legally have to. That is, that's part of the rules. You don't legally have to put them into furlough. So that is that position. I've also had a number of people recently ask me about furnished holiday lets. So if you have furnished holiday lets that you declare on your personal tax return that you're putting through the land and property pages of your personal tax return, where do you stand? So with that, there's no specific financial support offered at all, specifically for your sector. There's a few things that you might be able to benefit from. However, if you're VAT registered, you would be able to benefit from a VAT deferment to the end of the tax year. That is allowed to defer your VAT that might be due up until June. You also would be able to defer personal tax payment on account that might be due in July. You can defer that to the January payment. If you have got furnished holiday lets, it depends the setup that you have and what you've done regarding council tax versus business rates. But if you have it on business rates, of course, that grant would then potentially be open to you. As I say, it depends on your setup. Some people set it up under business rates and some don't. So that would depend on your setup. And then there's potentially the option for your mortgage holiday if you have a mortgage on your holiday let. So being able to take that 3-month mortgage holiday as well could be an option for you. But in terms of actual, supporting your own personal income, then no, that is not covered. So that's kind of where you stand with that. Jonathan's saying, must leave now. Thanks for the broadcast. Best wishes. Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me. So any questions? Does anyone have any questions? That's basically what I wanted to cover today in terms of the update of everything. I will have a look at that Financial Times article that someone mentioned as well in terms of what people might be able to use to use that grant for, if there's restrictions, EU restrictions potentially on the use of that. I know that when people are applying for the grants, there is stuff to be done around whether they've received EU aid before. So it sounds like we might fall into this EU aid bucket, but I'm going to check on that as well and read that article, and I will brief you on that as well. I will let you know what comes out of that too. So I'm just going to check to see if we've got any other questions from anybody. I can see some hellos. Thank you so much for saying hello. It's always lovely that people say hi to me when they join, because otherwise I feel a little bit like I'm talking to myself sometimes. So I really, really do appreciate when you say hello and when you interact with me in the comments, because it can be a bit weird and lonely doing lives when no one does. So I appreciate that. We've had lots on Facebook today, so thank you so much. Sarah's saying, would I like to come and talk to our community? Absolutely, Sarah. If anyone does want me to do any updates for their own communities, whether that's wherever this may be, I'm absolutely more than open to doing that. Just pop me a direct message on whatever platform you are on, and I'm more than happy to come and do a session for your community, your audience as well. So yeah, anyone who is in that position, please do let me know. Please just do ping me a direct message wherever you are, and I'm happy to do those sessions, no problem at all. There we go. I think that is all the questions. So thank you for joining me today. I know your time is incredibly precious. Therefore, thank you for spending some of it with me. I do appreciate that. I hope this session has been useful. Like I said, I am going to be going live Monday to Friday. So my next session that I will be doing that is 9 a.m. on Monday morning. So you can wake up with me on 9 a.m. on Monday morning. That sounded weird, didn't it? But you can wake up Monday the 20th, 9 a.m. will be my next broadcast, where again, I will be broadcasting to all platforms. So do join me then. Make sure you pop that in your diary and do join me then. I will be trying to go live at 11. That's my aim, is to go live at 11 each day. But some days when I decided to do this, I've already got some stuff in the diary. So next week will be a little bit sort of up, and it won't always be 11. The week after, though, we should be on a regular slot. I'll be able to do that on 11 a.m. UK time from then on. So thank you so much for joining me. Oh, I've got another question that's just come in from Jonathan. Any update likely on self-employed whose income is only a minor part of total income? No, Jonathan. The support for self-employed is only when it is over 50%. So if you have a small amount of self-employed income, that is not covered at all anywhere. That is out with the scope of the support, unfortunately. There's been no change on that and no update on that for you. So Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Do join me at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. If I hear anything or anything major comes out in the meantime, I probably will go live before that. But that is my plan, is to be live again at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. I hope that you stay safe and stay well. And I will speak to you all soon. Take care. There we go. Bye.